You thought your life was finally making sense. Not perfect in a flashy way, but perfect in the quiet way that feels real. The kind of perfect where you look at someone and think, this is it, this is who I build my future with. You didn't need more. You didn't want more. You just wanted her. You remember how it started. Meeting Sara felt like luck finally choosing you. The laughs that came easy. The comfort that didn't need effort. When you proposed, you weren't trying to impress the world. You were promising yourself a simple life done right. A small apartment, a small wedding, big loyalty, big love. You imagined coming home tired but happy. You imagined growing old without ever doubting who stood beside you. And for a while, you lived inside that dream like it was unbreakable. But then something shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and heavy. You started noticing how her phone never left her hand, but somehow never opened near you. How her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore, especially when you walked into the room. Conversations became shorter. Touch felt distant. And every time you asked if something was wrong, she said nothing was. You want to believe her. So you did. Amar tried to warn you. Your best friend, the one who had seen you before love made you blind. He told you something that stuck, even though you didn't want it to. Love should not feel like fear. But you brush it off. You told yourself that trust means staying quiet when doubts get loud. You told yourself that real love doesn't question, it believes. So you kept believing, even when your chest felt tight for no clear reason. Even when nights felt longer. Even when your heart started preparing for pain you couldn't yet explain. Then one day, by accident, you saw a name on her phone you didn't recognize. Daniel. Just a name. Just a few letters. But in that moment, something inside you cracked for the first time. Not shattered. Not broken. Just cracked enough to let the truth start leaking in. You didn't confront her. You didn't accuse her. You just stood there, pretending nothing happened while your chest learned what quiet pain feels like. And that's where your innocence began to fade. Because before betrayal comes destruction, it always comes as confusion. Before heartbreak screams, it whispers. And right there, staring at a name you never wanted to know, you realize something you weren't ready to accept yet. Sometimes the life you think is perfect is only perfect because you haven't seen the truth behind it. That was the moment your love story stopped being a dream and started becoming a lesson. You still remember that night, even if you try not to. The room wasn't dramatic. The air wasn't heavy in some movie scene way. It was just quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that tells you something in your life is about to end, even before a single word is spoken. You didn't confront her with anger. You didn't come in loud. You came in scared, because deep down, you already knew what the truth might be, and you were hoping love could still save you from hearing it. Your voice didn't shake when you asked her. Your hands did. You weren't asking to fight. You were asking to hold on to what was slipping away. And for a moment, she didn't say anything. Then she did. She told you she met someone else. Not with cruelty, not with shame, just with honesty that felt colder than hatred ever could. She said his name, Daniel, and suddenly the world you were standing in felt unreal. She explained how he was different, how he had money, how he had stability, how he could give her the life she wanted faster than you ever could. She didn't say you weren't enough. She didn't have to. You heard it anyway. That's the moment your heart didn't break. It stopped. Not dramatically, not loudly, just stopped. Like your body didn't know how to process the pain yet, so it chose silence instead. You didn't yell. You didn't beg. You didn't collapse to the floor. You just stood there, feeling empty in a way you had never known before. Not sad, not angry, just hollow, like something inside you had been quietly taken without permission. She told you she still loved you, and somehow, that hurt more than if she said she never did. Because love wasn't enough anymore. Love couldn't compete with a better future. Love couldn't stand next to money, comfort, and security. Love couldn't win against timing and opportunity. And right there, you learned a truth no one prepares you for. Sometimes love doesn't fail because it's weak. Sometimes it fails because it's not convenient. You watched her walk away from your engagement, from your memories, from a future you built in your head piece by piece. You watched her choose another life while you stood in the ruins of the one you thought was real. And you didn't chase her. Not because you didn't care, but because you suddenly understood something painful. You were already replaced. That night, you went back to your room alone. No messages, no noise, no comfort. Just you, sitting in the dark, replaying every moment you missed, every sign you ignored, every second you chose trust over truth. The walls felt closer. The air felt heavier. And for the first time in your life, you felt what real loneliness is. Not being alone, but realizing the person you gave everything to chose someone else without looking back. That's when it hit you. Being replaced hurts more than being hated. If she had hated you, at least you would still matter. If she had blamed you, at least you would still be part of her story. But being replaced means you became optional, disposable, like your love was just a chapter she finished reading before turning the page. And that realization changed you, because that night didn't just take her away from you. It took your innocence too. It took the part of you that believed loyalty was always enough. It took the part of you that thought love meant permanence. It took the part of you that trusted without fear. You didn't cry at first. You just sat there, staring at nothing, feeling everything. You felt small. You felt slow. You felt like the world moved forward while you were stuck in a moment you couldn't escape. You wondered what Daniel had that you didn't. You wondered what you lacked. You wondered if you were ever truly enough, or just a placeholder until something better came along. And in that silence, something inside you collapsed. Not loudly, not violently, quietly. That was the night you stopped believing that love always protects you. The night you learned that sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who teach you the hardest lessons. The night you realized that betrayal doesn't always come with anger. It often comes with calm explanations and gentle goodbyes. And that hurts even more, because now, when you look back, you don't remember the fight. You remember the calm. You remember the way she said your name for the last time without emotion. You remember the way the room felt when she walked out. You remember sitting alone, realizing that everything you built in your heart could be undone in a single conversation. That night didn't just end a relationship. It ended the version of you who thought love was always safe. And in the quiet of that room, with nothing but your thoughts and the echo of her goodbye, you finally understood something that would change you forever. Losing her hurt, but losing who you were before that night hurt even more, because now you carry a different kind of awareness. You no longer see love as something that simply happens to you. You see it as something that can be taken from you, replaced, traded, and that knowledge sits heavy in your chest, not because it makes you bitter, but because it makes you honest. That night taught you that sometimes the deepest pain doesn't come from being left. It comes from realizing you were loved until you weren't the best option anymore. And that realization stays with you, long after the room empties, long after the words fade, long after the door closes. That was the night you didn't just lose her. That was the night you learned what it feels like to lose yourself and still have to keep breathing. You wake up every day, but you're not really living. Your eyes open, your body moves, but something inside you stays asleep. Or maybe it's not asleep. Maybe it's just tired of hurting. After she left, you didn't fall apart in a dramatic way. You didn't scream. You didn't beg life for answers. You just disappeared quietly. You stopped answering calls. You stopped replying to messages. Friends checked in at first, then slowly stopped when silence became your only response. You didn't mean to push anyone away. You just didn't have the energy to explain your pain anymore. Even work started slipping. You sat at your desk, staring at your screen, reading the same sentence over and over without understanding it. Deadlines passed. Mistakes happened. One day your boss called you into his office. Not angry, just serious. He told you that you were close to losing your job. He said he didn't care what you were going through. Life doesn't pause for heartbreak. You nodded like you understood, but inside you felt numb. Part of you almost didn't care if you lost everything. Because when you lose the person you built your future around, everything else feels small. Then your mother noticed. She always does. She saw the way you stopped talking, the way you ate less, the way you stared into nothing even when people were around you. One evening, she sat beside you. She didn't lecture. She didn't push. She just said something simple that hit deeper than any advice ever could. Pain is not weakness. Staying in pain is. You didn't respond. But that sentence stayed with you. It followed you into the night, into your thoughts, into the quiet moments when you wondered if this was how your life would be now, just surviving days instead of living them. Around that time, you met Nina at work. Not in some dramatic way, just in ordinary moments. Coffee breaks, late shifts, short conversations that slowly became longer. She didn't ask you to explain everything. She didn't rush you. She didn't try to save you. She just listened. And for the first time in a long time, you felt what it was like to speak without feeling judged. You told her things you never said out loud before. About Sara, about the betrayal, about how empty you felt, about how tired you were of pretending you were okay. Nina never interrupted, never corrected your feelings. She just let you talk. And somehow, that was enough to make you breathe a little easier. Through those conversations, you started realizing something painful. You didn't just love Sara. You lost yourself in her. You loved her more than you loved yourself. You built your identity around being her partner, her future, her support. And when she left, she didn't just take love with her. She took the version of you that only knew how to exist for someone else. That's when it hit you. You weren't just heartbroken. You were empty because you never learned how to be whole on your own. This chapter of your life wasn't about healing in a beautiful way. It was about survival, about waking up every day even when you didn't want to, about getting out of bed when the weight on your chest made you want to stay buried under the covers, about choosing not to destroy your life just because someone else chose a different one. Some days you failed. Some days you stayed in bed too long. Some days you ignored the world again. But other days you tried. You answered one call. You showed up to work even when you felt weak. You listened to your mother even when her words hurt. You talked to Nina even when opening up scared you. And slowly, without realizing it, you stopped falling deeper. You didn't suddenly feel strong. You didn't suddenly feel confident. You just stopped wanting to disappear. That was the real shift. Not when you stopped loving Sara, but when you stopped destroying yourself for her. One night, sitting alone, you made a quiet promise to yourself. Not out loud, not in front of anyone, just inside your chest, where it mattered most. You promised that you would not ruin your future for someone who walked away from you. You promised that you would not waste your life proving your pain. You promised that if she could move forward without you, then you would learn how to move forward without her. That promise didn't make you happy. It made you strong, and strength didn't feel like confidence. It felt like choosing to breathe even when breathing hurt. You started understanding something every broken man learns the hard way. Pain can shape you, or it can end you, but it cannot stay forever unless you let it. You didn't wake up healed. You woke up willing to survive, willing to stand again, willing to become someone who doesn't beg for love, someone who deserves it, starting with himself. That's when you finally understood what this chapter of your life was really about. Not revenge, not closure, not proving your worth to anyone else. It was about saving yourself before you lost everything that still remained. And that day, even in your broken state, you chose not to disappear. You chose to stay. Months later, her name comes back into your life when you least expect it. Not through a message, not through a call, not even through a memory you choose to revisit. It comes through someone else's voice in a moment that feels ordinary until it isn't. It's her sister, Aisha. She doesn't start with drama. She doesn't come with gossip. She comes with truth. The kind of truth that doesn't try to hurt you, but still lands heavy. She tells you what happened after Sara left. How Daniel was never planning a future. How he wanted excitement, not responsibility. How he liked the chase, not the commitment. How Sara gave up everything she had for him. Her stability, her safety, the life she once built with you. And how, in the end, she was left standing alone. You listen quietly, and what surprises you most isn't the story. It's your reaction. You don't feel happy. You don't feel sad. You don't feel satisfied. You feel calm. Not the calm of victory. Not the calm of revenge. The calm of acceptance. For a long time, you thought you needed justice. You thought you needed to see her regret what she did. You thought you needed life to prove that you were right and she was wrong. But standing there, hearing how everything fell apart for her without you lifting a finger, you realize something unexpected. You don't need revenge. Life is already doing what you once begged it to do. and somehow that gives you peace. Not because she's hurting, but because you're not anymore. A few days later, she tries to reach you. A message, then another, then a missed call. You stare at your phone, and for a moment, the old version of you wakes up. The one who would have run back. The one who would have answered just to feel needed again. The one who believed that love meant sacrificing your pride. But that boy isn't you anymore. You don't rush. You don't panic. You don't feel desperate. You feel steady. You finally understand something you never understood before. Your worth is not defined by who chooses you when you're easy to leave. Your worth is defined by who you become when you finally choose yourself. Sara's pain doesn't excite you. It doesn't feed your ego. It doesn't heal your wounds. It just reminds you how far you've come, how different you are now, how the man standing here today is not the same man who once begged someone to stay. And that realization hits harder than any apology ever could. Because once upon a time, you would have given everything just to hear her say she made a mistake. You would have sacrificed your dignity just to feel important again. You would have erased your progress just to return to something that already broke you. But now, you don't need her regret. You need your respect. And you finally have it. You think about the nights you cried in silence. The mornings you forced yourself out of bed. The days you felt invisible. The moments you questioned your worth. The time you spent rebuilding yourself from nothing. And you realize, if she walked back into your life now, she wouldn't meet the same man she left. She would meet someone stronger, someone calmer, someone who no longer chases love at the cost of himself. That's when it truly sinks in. Karma doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes it comes quietly, like a whisper you hear only after you've healed. Sara didn't lose you when she chose Daniel. She lost you when you learned to choose yourself. And that loss is permanent. Because the boy who begged for love is gone. The boy who thought staying meant proving his worth is gone. The boy who believed loyalty meant self-destruction is gone. In his place stands a man who knows his value. A man who doesn't need to be chosen to feel complete. A man who doesn't confuse attachment with love. A man who understands that self-respect is louder than any apology. You don't hate her. You don't resent her. You simply release her. Not because she deserves forgiveness, but because you deserve freedom. And that's the real victory. Not seeing her fall. Not watching her regret. Not hearing her pain. The real victory is knowing that if she never called again, you would still be okay. That if she never apologized, you would still be whole. That if her life never crossed yours again, you would still move forward without looking back. That's when you realize karma didn't just teach her a lesson. It taught you something better. That love should never cost you your dignity. That attachment should never cost you your identity. That no one is worth losing yourself for. And standing here now, calmer than you've ever been, you finally understand what this chapter of your life was building toward. Not revenge, not closure, self-respect. Because the strongest moment isn't when someone realizes they lost you. It's when you realize you never needed them to be whole in the first place. And that's when karma stops being something you wait for and becomes something you walk away from. With your head up, your heart steady, and your future finally yours. You stand here now, looking back at everything that tried to break you. And for the first time, you don't feel weak for remembering it. You feel strong for surviving it. Betrayal changed you. There's no pretending it didn't. It changed the way you trust, the way you love, the way you look at people who promise forever. But it didn't destroy you. It didn't end your story. It didn't take your future the way you once feared it would. It only took the version of you that didn't know his own worth yet. And maybe that version had to go. You won't lie and say you're untouched. You carry scars. You feel them in quiet moments, in sudden memories, in the way your chest tightens when you hear certain words or see certain places. But you've learned something powerful about scars. They're proof that you lived through what was meant to end you. They don't make you weak. They make you real. For a long time, you thought healing meant forgetting. You thought it meant waking up one day and feeling nothing. But healing didn't come like that. It came slowly, in the way you stopped checking your phone for her name, in the way you stopped asking why you weren't enough, in the way you finally looked in the mirror and didn't see a man who was left. You saw a man who was still standing. And one day, without planning it, you forgave her. Not because she deserved it, not because she asked for it, but because you were tired of carrying her mistakes inside your heart. You forgave her for your peace, for your sleep, for your freedom. You forgave her because holding on to anger kept you tied to the past, and you were done living there. You didn't erase what she did. You just stopped letting it control who you became. And that's when something changed. You stopped chasing love. Not because you stopped believing in it, but because you finally understood that love should meet you halfway. You stopped running after people who were unsure about you. You stopped shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's life. You stopped proving your worth to those who couldn't see it. Instead, you started building yourself. You built your mind. You built your discipline. You built your future. You learned how to sit alone without feeling lonely. You learned how to enjoy your own company without needing validation. You learned how to stand strong without needing to be chosen by someone else. And in that process, you found something you never had before. You found yourself, not the version shaped by heartbreak, not the version shaped by betrayal, but the version shaped by growth. You became wiser, not in a loud way, but in a quiet, grounded way. The kind of wisdom that doesn't argue with the past, the kind that doesn't beg for explanations, the kind that simply moves forward. You became stronger, not in your words, but in your boundaries. You no longer explain your value to people who don't respect it. You no longer stay where you are not wanted. You no longer confuse attachment with love. And most of all, you became free. Free from replaying old conversations. Free from wondering what you could have done differently. Free from needing closure from someone who already gave you clarity by leaving. You don't hate her. You don't resent her. You simply accept what was. She was part of your journey, but she was not your destination. And that truth doesn't hurt anymore. Because now, when you think about love, you don't think about loss. You think about alignment. You think about peace. You think about building something that doesn't require you to sacrifice yourself to keep it alive. You finally understand something deep in your soul. Being loved is beautiful, but being whole is essential. You stand stronger now, not because life got easier, but because you got braver. Braver in choosing yourself. Braver in walking away from what hurts you. Braver in believing that your story doesn't end with betrayal. It begins after it. Once, you're defined by who left you. Now you're defined by who you became after they did. And that difference changes everything. You didn't lose her and find nothing. You lost her and found yourself. And that's not a loss. That's a rebirth.